Imagine everyone you've ever met is related to you, your entire world, maybe 25 people, and every single one of them is family. Now, find someone to love. That was the problem 30,000 years ago, and the answer humans found is buried in a grave in Russia. Two children, buried head to head. But when scientists read their DNA, they discovered something that should have been almost impossible. They weren't siblings, they weren't even first cousins. So where did their parents find one another in a world with no strangers? Finding someone today is hard enough. You have apps, bars, friends who know friends, a whole city of strangers, and it still feels impossible. Now delete all of it. You wake up on frozen ground. The fire is almost out. Someone is already working. You know her. You know everyone here. There are no towns, no roads, no way to send a message ahead. You live in a small band. You hunt together. You sleep together. You survive together. And here's the part we never think about. That band? That's your whole dating pool. There's no app. There's no village square. There's no crowd of new faces on a Friday night. There's just the people you were born beside, and most of them share your blood. Your parents, your siblings, your cousins. So you have two options: pair off with family, or somehow don't. That choice sounds simple. It wasn't. Because one of those options was quietly trying to destroy your bloodline. To see how, we have to look at what happens when a group turns inward for too long. Here's the thing about a really small group. Every generation, the family tree stops branching out and starts folding back in. Your grandparents were related, your parents were related, you marry a cousin, your kids marry cousins, and with every loop, something dangerous builds up in the DNA. Let me keep this simple. Every person carries a few hidden genetic flaws, silent ones, usually harmless, because your other copy of that gene works fine. But when two relatives have a child, those hidden flaws can line up, both copies broken, at the same time. Do that once, and you might be unlucky. Do it for generations, and the whole group gets weaker. More illness, fewer healthy children, a slow, invisible decline. Scientists have a cold name for it: genetic load, and in a band of 25, it is a countdown. So how many people do you actually need? Biologists who work on endangered species have a rough rule of thumb: 50. That's the bare minimum to avoid immediate inbreeding damage. 500. That's what it takes to survive over the long run. And some researchers argue even those numbers are too low. Now look at your band again. 25 people. Half of them your relatives. You are not slightly too small. You are not close. You are missing hundreds of people. And they are out there, somewhere, across a frozen continent you have never seen the edge of. You will scroll past 500 faces tonight without thinking about it once. They had to walk. So every small group faced the same silent test: fold inward and fade, or reach outward somehow. We know which one our ancestors chose because of those two children in the grave. The place is called Sunghir, a site in Russia, about 34,000 years old, and it is one of the richest Ice Age burials ever found. The bodies were covered in beads, thousands of them, each one carved by hand from mammoth ivory. People spent months decorating these graves. Whoever these two children were, they mattered, buried together, head to head. Everything about the grave seems to say family, brothers maybe, or cousins. But you already know the DNA disagreed. They weren't siblings, they weren't first cousins. The genetic estimate placed them at most around second cousins. Whatever bound those two children together, it wasn't blood. And that wasn't even the larger discovery. 4 people at Sunghir had their genomes read. Not one pair was closely related. This was not one isolated family pairing only with itself. Their band was small. Their mating network wasn't. Sit with that. In a tiny Ice Age community where you'd expect everyone to be tangled together on one family tree, these people weren't, which means something remarkable. These humans were not marrying their relatives. They were finding partners from outside. Somewhere out in that empty, frozen world, groups were trading people. The question is, how? Because remember, no roads, no towns, no messages. How do you find a stranger to love when you don't even know they exist? The answer is that these bands were never truly alone. They just looked alone. Scattered across the landscape were other bands, distant, but not unreachable. And archaeology shows they were in contact. How do we know? Because their stuff traveled. Seashells found hundreds of kilometers from any sea. Special stone carried far from where it was dug. Beads and ornaments moving across the map. Objects don't walk. People carry them. So if a shell could travel that far, so could a person. So could news. So could an invitation. Certain times of year, scattered groups would gather. A good hunting season, a migrating herd, a familiar meeting place. For a few weeks, your world of 25 became a world of hundreds. New faces, new families, new possibilities. This was the ancient answer to the dating problem. Not a village, a gathering. You still do this. You just call it a festival, a wedding, a night out. You didn't find love next door. You walked for days to find it. And when two people from different bands paired up, it wasn't just romance. It was an alliance. Two groups now linked by a child, sharing food in hard times, sharing safety, but an alliance has a price. Because when two people from different bands pair up, one of them has to leave. Leave their parents, leave their siblings, leave the only people they have ever known. So who went? We have a clue. And it comes from a cave in northern Spain, 49,000 years old. Inside, archaeologists found 12 individuals, an entire group. They died at roughly the same time, and the cave came down on top of them, a whole family, frozen in place. And when scientists read their DNA, a pattern appeared. The three adult men all shared the same maternal line. They had grown up here. They had never left. But the three adult women each carried a different maternal line. Not one of them was born in that cave. All three had come from somewhere else. Now, this is an interpretation. Other scientists have pushed back on it. 12 people is a small sample, but it matches something we can still see today. In most hunter-gatherer societies alive now, it works the same way. The men stay, the women move. And if that's right, then picture what this actually meant. A teenage girl, walking away from her mother, walking away from everyone, knowing she will probably never see them again. No calls, no letters, no visits. She walks over that ridge, and they are gone, walking toward a group of strangers who are now supposed to be her family. That was the price. That was what the network was made of. Not romance, goodbyes. And here's what I haven't told you about that cave in Spain. Those 12 people, they weren't us. They were Neanderthals, not brutes, not fools. Skilled, intelligent humans who survived ice ages we never faced. They were running the same system, moving people between groups, building the same web, which makes what happened in Siberia much harder to explain. In a Siberian cave, scientists found the toe bone of one Neanderthal woman, and they read her genome. What they found was quiet and sad. Her parents were closely related, about as related as half-siblings, and it went back further than that. Her recent ancestors had been pairing with close relatives for generations. This was a family that had folded inward, exactly the countdown we talked about. Another Neanderthal genome from Croatia does not show the same deep inbreeding. So we can't say every Neanderthal lived this way. We can't say inbreeding alone ended their story. That would be a leap the evidence doesn't allow. But this individual shows the danger was real, not theory, written in a real person's DNA. And remember the cave in Spain. Her people knew how to build the network. So this probably isn't a story about who was smarter. Maybe her group was simply isolated. Maybe the land trapped them. Maybe the nearest strangers were just too far away. The web held for us. For her family, it broke. And there's one more open mystery. Did our ancestors understand any of this? Did they know, somehow, that marrying family was dangerous? Or did they just follow customs? Seek a partner from another band, without ever knowing why those customs kept them alive? We can't ask them. But here's what's beautiful. It didn't matter. Whether they understood the science or simply followed the tradition, the reaching outward is what saved them. Two children, head to head, wrapped in thousands of ivory beads. They weren't close relatives, and that is exactly the point. Those children existed because for thousands of years their ancestors refused to fold inward. They walked for days. They crossed an empty world. They said goodbye to the people they loved so their children would have someone to love. Finding love in the Ice Age was never really about romance. It was survival. It was diplomacy. It was a fragile web of hands reaching across the emptiness, just so the next generation would have someone to reach for too. We think of love as the most personal thing there is, but once it was the thing that kept our entire species alive.
That's today's Brain Snack. Subscribe so you never miss a bite.